Thank you, Kate. Super fascinating. And finally, I'd like to introduce Mounir Ibrahim, who is a fantastic co-author and mentor of mine. Mounir is the Vice President of Public Affairs and Impact for Truepic, an award-winning technology company specializing in digital content provenance and authenticity. From 2009 to 2017, Mounir was a Foreign Service Officer with the U.S. Department of State and key Syria advisor to various ambassadors and presidential cabinet members. Mounir served in Damascus, Washington, Istanbul, Bogota, and New York at the U.S. mission to the UN. Mounir is School of International and Public Affairs, TEDx speaker, team member of the Council on Foreign Relations, and his writing has been featured by various outlets, including the Wall Street Journal, the World Economic Forum, Middle East Institute, and The Hill. Let's give a warm welcome and shout out.
Thank you, Cassidy. I know this has been a long day, so I will be as brief as possible. So my goal is to maybe zoom out a little bit and give a bit of a macro view. What does this all mean? Everything we're talking about today, what does it mean and how does it affect our lives? Henry really showed us the various models and the technical questions, the open versus closed models. Kate walked us through what the industry is trying to do and the provenance solution that certainly Truepic is a big believer and proponent of, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But I really want all of us to just take a moment to zoom out and look at the world as it is. What does Gen AI actually mean for it? Second, on my background. So as Cassidy noted, I'm with Truepic. I've been with Truepic for about 5.5 years. But perhaps what's more relevant is what I did before Truepic. I was, in fact, a U.S. diplomat with the U.S. Department of State, and I was positioned all over the world. But most significantly, I was in Syria. Damascus, Syria, at the start of the Arab Spring and throughout the early months of the conflict before our embassy was shut down. There, I saw just how important digital content was, user-generated content in particular. In the early days in Syria, when protests took place and they were violently suppressed, one of the worst crimes you could be charged with, and the Syrian regime would actually treat those who were filming the protests worse than those who were actually protesting on the ground. Just take a moment and think about that. The power of digital content. In 2010 and 2011, it was user-generated. Smartphones were everywhere, and it upended governments across the Middle East and elsewhere. Fast forward from that experience to my last posting. I was at the US mission to the United Nations. There we sat on the UN Security Council. And we would see the entrance of the same user-generated content that I saw people getting arrested and beaten for filming enter into the highest levels of international decision-making, the UN Security Council. Images and videos of chemical weapons attacks, atrocities, attacks on hospitals, attacks on schools, every day in the UN Security Council. What that actually showed me was that digital content was now essential. We rely on digital content in every aspect of our life. Take away those dramatic scenes that I just noted. Think about who you're dating, what home you're renting for vacation, what you're buying online. All of this starts with digital content. So let's see if I can move down. If you were to leave one thing tonight, at least from me, that would be important is this concept, the liar's dividend. I'm sure many of you know it, but in the off chance you are not familiar with the liar's dividend, it is this concept coined by two law school professors in the US, Danielle Citron and Bobby Chesney. And it refers to the phenomenon when bad actors use the possibility something could be fake to undermine all digital content. And I saw that in plain sight every day as a diplomat. These are notable images. This is an image of a Syrian defector who was literally in the coroner's office. And he took thousands, tens of thousands of images, and he smuggled them out of Syria of executed people on the ground. He brought them to the United States and to Europe. He was known as Caesar This is him testifying in front of Congress. You can see the images, which are pretty graphic in the back. What was the first reaction of the Syrian regime when these images came out? You can see the headline there. Oh, those are fake. Those are fake. Prove to me those images are real. That drove me insane as a diplomat. I said, there's got to be a way to prove that an image or video is real. Spoiler, there actually isn't. And it drove me insane, and I began looking for a solution. That's how I stumbled onto Truepic. I often joke, but this is actually the truth. I read a headline from TechCrunch that said, San Diego startup raises $1 million to fight fake photos on Tinder. I went to the CEO and I said, can you give me the Tinder fighting photos and get it to the Syrians? And that's how this happened. But joking aside, our founder, our CEO, saw the same problem in business every day. Insurers are accepting images and videos and they're paying out claims daily. They don't know if they're real or not. This is a problem. As we digitize our lives, we need trust and transparency in it. So this liar's dividend is a very real concept. And I would argue it is highly, highly, highly effective. So here are just 3 sample images here. You can see my fat chin underneath behind Samantha Power. That was during a Syria council session in which she was referring to a chemical weapons attack. You can see how angry I actually was. But that's not just the past. This image here on the left is from Ukraine. This is happening daily in Ukraine. I would say Ukraine's slightly different than Syria because it's somewhat permissive. News camera crews can go film live on the ground. So it's a little bit harder to employ the liar's dividend when there's a live feed on the ground, or heads of state are actually going and visiting the ground. But nonetheless, it's important. This right here is one of the first iterations of provenance, what Kate actually described that my company Truepic did. We empowered this young citizen journalist in Syria who had quite a big following to capture a video and deliver a message using our provenance-based technology. And he did so to prove that he was actually in that northern province called Idlib. That video went viral and became Al Jazeera's #1 video around the world for about 2 months. In that, he made a call to the US president for aid to be delivered through the northern border. So this is all to say, we rely on this digital content. People are regularly undermining this digital content, and there needs to be ways to have transparency in that digital content. What does that actually mean with generative AI? Now let's go back to generative AI. While these fundamental truths exist, we are at a precipice when we are going to see an explosion of synthetic content created by the millisecond. So if we thought the liar's dividend was bad, or a bad actor can say, oh, that's fake, think about how much stronger that's actually going to be when deepfakes are created or synthetics are created by the millisecond. It is going to be quite damaging. So I would encourage you all, as you have many more discussions and conferences and thoughts about generative AI, think about this concept of the liar's dividend. If we do not know what is in fact authentic or that has been manipulated, then the erosion of fact is real. And that's not hyperbole. That has happened. And it was highly, highly effective. It has not only happened in Syria, it's happened in Burma and many, many other places. This is in fact real. The last thing I'll leave you with is hopefully a little more optimistic, to build on what Kate mentioned. I do believe there is a way. It's not a silver bullet. It is not going to stop disinformation in its tracks, but there is a way to help mitigate these risks by introducing transparency in digital content. It's not binary. It's not saying, yes, believe it, everything is copacetic, or no, don't believe it. It is giving content consumers the ability to make a little bit better informed judgment by providing that provenance. That is this open standard that was written by the C2PA, Coalition for Content Provenance and Authenticity, that Kate noted, being tested daily in the CAI with a variety of our partners. By the way, if there's any tough technical questions, ask the gentleman in the back, Andrew Jakes from Microsoft. He is in fact the chairman of the C2PA and really one of the leaders. But this is what it could look like. This is actually a picture that I took in Times Square in New York City. And imagine having this type of information. Opt in, of course, before you jump down the privacy train, only if the content creator wants to provide this information. You could have, it was captured on this date at this location. It was edited this way in Photoshop. It was manipulated that way. And this is what you're in fact looking at. This is a way forward in which we can have the beginning of a more transparent digital content experience. Sure, there will be tons, millions of images every day that don't have this, and that's okay. But the existence of digital content provenance will at least help educate content consumers. That, hey, let me think twice. I don't see any markings on this, much like you wouldn't go put your credit card information on a website that doesn't have an SSL encryption lock to it. That is a vision that I think we should all at least engage on, discuss, and think about as we talk about generative AI. Because the inability to know and have transparency in our digital content is going to be a significant problem. So I'll leave you all with that, and I welcome any thoughts or questions if we're at that stage.